This is the Double Negative Podcast, a photography podcast by Will Malone, with your host, me, the titular Will Malone. In this episode, I wanted to talk about finding your photography style. Something I've been going back and forth on with myself, trying to figure out where I am, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my process, and maybe in some way that can help you with yours. But first, you can follow me on Instagram at Will Malone. You can follow my Polaroid Instagram account at Everyday Instant. Like this video and subscribe to the Double Negative YouTube channel if you want to support what's going on here. You can subscribe to the Double Negative Dispatch, my weekly photography and other stuff newsletter. But the ultimate way you can support the Double Negative Project, or me in general, is by going to willmalone.com and buying a print off the store. I would be honored if you hung one of my prints on your wall. And I got some exciting stuff coming to the print shop here soon, kind of working on that. Should be a fun time. But now to the topic at hand, finding your photography style. I don't know if I've said this. I've definitely said this 1,000 times at this point. But in 2024, I did a Polaroid 365 project. And now I'm almost 2 weeks out from having to do a Polaroid 365 project. And I'm in this place where I'm stuck. Because I'm still shooting Polaroids pretty much every day. I think I've missed like one day. And I'm not doing it intentionally. I'm just kind of like continuing on with it. Not for any reason other than I just see images I want to shoot. I just feel like it. I've been documenting more family. It's been more laid back. I don't feel the need to share them all. But I got this fancy, cool Nikon ZF right here. I got this nice Nikon ZF camera. And currently I have this fisheye, 10 millimeter, 7 Artisans fisheye on it. And one thing that Polaroids have done for me is made me less afraid of flash. So I have like the big fancy like Nikon flashes that I've had for like a decade. But I got a couple like little small flashes. I got this cool one. I think this one came out recently. It's like the Kex one that looks tiny. You know, it's cool, metal. It's kind of like my light meter I have, but it just it looks like a Death Star kind of retro Star Wars look. And then I got like some cheapo like Godox flashes. Anyways, I got some small flashes just so I can more easily add flash to my work, just because I got in the habit of doing it when shooting Polaroids. But then I look at this camera, this Nikon ZF, and I like using it, and I've shot some family photos, and I even have done some client work with it recently, but I kind of don't know what to do with it because I've been so in the pocket for Polaroid. One thing that you don't really realize you're doing when you do like a year-long project with one particular camera is, even if you're using other cameras for other things, you're training your brain to think in a certain way. And apparently, I trained my brain to think in Polaroid, and now I don't really know how to do anything else. The problem with digital that I'm having right now is that there's too much information in the photos. I don't know what to do with all of it. I pull it up to edit it, and I'm like, oof, I don't know how to edit this. Like, there's too much detail. There's too much going on. And it's like, the photos are kind of uninteresting to me. And it just so happened that I've been shooting Polaroids. I haven't had to edit. I haven't had to think about like a wealth of detail in these images. And now digital's like overload. Like all these photos are like too much. And to me, they don't feel like they're part of my photography style anymore. Like I just don't feel like, I feel like digital's like, doesn't feel like Will Malone photos anymore. And so I've been kind of grappling with this because, I spent so much on Polaroid film. I have re-upped my stash of Polaroid film because I'm going to be shooting more Polaroid stuff just because it's what I do. It's what I like. And so I'm not really interested in like roll film right now, like 120 or 35 millimeter. That's just not, I don't know. It's just not what I'm into at the moment. The problem is like, if I am to shoot like roll film for a video, I have to think about the video 2 weeks out. I've got to plan it out. I've got to get it developed. I've got to make sure my editing can coincide with when my scans come back because I don't do developing myself. And it got to the point where I'm like, this isn't really working for me because on one hand, it's like I'm paying for the film and then I pay for the development, which is kind of like double the price of a pack of Polaroid film. And then I have to wait like 2 weeks to send it off and get it back. And I'm not really in love with the process of like developing film. So to me right now, shooting roll film is a little, I don't know. It just doesn't, it feels a little pointless to me at the moment. So all I feel like I have at the moment is Polaroids, which is a bizarre place to be, because the whole time I spent doing this 365 project, I was excited to get back to other types of photography. And now that I'm on the other end of this Polaroid 365 project, I'm like, what other types of photography? I don't know where else to go. And then last night I was sitting in here and I was just, I don't know, watching YouTube, surfing the web. I don't know if people do that now. Just on my computer right here. And I was kind of going down this rabbit hole of like Japanese photographers, like Daido Moriyama, Masahisa Fukase, the like kind of Provoke collective people, Void Tokyo, that kind of stuff. And I was just going on a deep dive, watching videos about that kind of photography. I think I mentioned him on another podcast, Trent Park. And I was realizing, I was like, man, I am just so drawn to like these gritty styles of photography, especially like these harsh black and whites, harsh black and white photography that's like got a lot of grit and grain and grittiness to it. I've said grit like 1,000 times already. And then I was thinking back, like, why is that? And then I realized something. My early work had a lot of that grittiness in it. And by early, I mean the first time I took a film photography class. And what I would do often is I would just cook the living crap out of my darkroom prints with the enlarger. So here's a shot right here. This is my friend Doug. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but he was a commercial photographer, and I used to work for him. And I just did this series where I just kind of like documented what we did in a day. So in this, we're shooting photos for a bakery, and so we had to like, there's a piece of cake right here, and we had to get it, nice looking. And I think we're shooting on like Tri-X with I have like a Nikon N65 I'd shoot with, but all of my photos had this like grittiness to it, where it was like just the blacks were super black and the whites are super white. There's a photo I shot of his fridge back then of him with the Dalai Lama. It's pretty cool. And there's something kind of abstract about this. It's just newspaper clippings. It's a picture of his fridge. And I don't think it's a particularly good photo, but it kind of was like looking like a lot of the photos I was watching through last night when I was digging into like those Japanese kind of photographers. Here's Doug walking outside his house. And then I started thinking through more of my early stuff when I was in this photography class. I don't have those prints here. I think they're in storage somewhere. I'll put them on the screen. They might be on my hard drive, so I'll put them on the screen if I find them. But basically, I did this series where I did a photo essay. I wanted to do a fictional photo essay. I thought it'd be a cool idea. So I wrote like this weird noir kind of dark dream-like David Lynchian story before I had even dug into anything David Lynch did. And so I wrote a story, and then I shot pictures along with the story, and then I presented them in a gallery, or maybe it was just in the classroom, I don't know, with the pictures and then the text that was supposed to go with the picture. And those photos are all like that harsh black, bright white, kind of gritty look. And then looking back at like more of my intro to photography stuff, like I could look through the moments that I can kind of now go back and recognize the moments when I figured that out, where I discovered that I really like harshness. I like a lot of form, a lot of shape, but not a lot of detail. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, that would explain why I've been gravitating towards Polaroid so much, is that it is kind of the embodiment of that style of photography. It doesn't have a lot of detail. You got to focus mostly on shapes. You've got to like have obvious subject matter that when distilled down to its elements, you can clearly tell what's going on in the photo. Maybe I'm not even interested in narrative that much. So then, so I started going down this rabbit hole. I was like, okay, well, that would explain why I'm into Polaroids now. But then I started thinking about all of my favorite photos that I've shot. And I started kind of mentally going through, and then started going through on my computer and prints and stuff. And what's on my walls here at my house, like my favorite photos. Like, what are the key elements in those photos that make them my favorite? And at glance, they may seem somewhat like a random assortment of images, but they all kind of have this one thing in common, which is that there's a lot of shapes. There's a lot of lack of detail. It kind of is face punching, as I like to say, where it's extremely clear what the subject is and what I like about it. And I'm trying to make a pleasing shape. And then I thought about the photos that I like from other photographers. And a lot of times, like, I don't like street photography. Most street photography I'm not a fan of. Well, why is that? Well, I realized it's because in street photography, there's usually a lot of things going on in a frame. There's a lot of busyness. There's a person here. There's a person back here. There's a reflection in the window over here. There's all this stuff happening. And I don't like the busyness of a bunch of stuff crammed into a frame. Okay, so now distilling these elements just of little inklings of things I felt over time is I like these harsh black and whites. I like harsh shapes. I don't necessarily care about narrative. I don't want a ton of detail. Okay, so that led me into being into Polaroids. And then I look at the stuff on my walls, and there's something about each one that kind of, you could almost make a painting. And the stuff on my walls I don't really like, I realized there are things that don't really adhere to these things. I had this like explosion last night. What I have unconsciously been going for forever, before I even knew anything about like the Provoke Collective or Daido Moriyama or all that kind of gritty Tokyo photography. Before I even shot Polaroids, before I even had any sort of inspiration to follow, I liked, turning up the time on an enlarger and kind of cooking my print a little bit to get it to be a little more intense. And now listen, I think a lot of you who click a video called Finding Your Photography Style, you probably don't have years and years to like think through. You don't have all that data. I have a lot of data as to how my interest in style has changed over time. But there is an unconscious style that I think everyone kind of has. I think everyone has like a built-in style. And the goal is to kind of like chip away at the marble to find the statue underneath that you actually are, the things you're trying to make. I've been doing photography now for like 15 years, right? And there were bits of my style from the day I started. And it's just now that I'm like starting to really recognize, what a good photo is in my mind. I think there are a lot of people, and Instagram is a place where you see people start photography and they immediately are in tune with their style from the jump. And I've always been somewhat jealous of those people that they make what they make, and that's what they do. And I have always struggled with the insecurity of that. I've struggled with insecurity forever because, all I've done is photography. So I've always had to make a living with it in somehow or some way. And the style I have always liked, the style that I always gravitated to, was not one that anyone around where I had ever lived or friends or family really was interested in or liked or thought was a print that would sell. And so that always made me kind of afraid to like lean into what I wanted because no one got it or no one was interested in it, and I needed to pay bills. I need to make money. And so I've always felt a little bit of guilt when I shoot photos that I like. And that's a weird place because I think you can make an argument that if I fully leaned into my style more, who knows, I might be more successful early on. I don't know. But now I kind of think, I used to think in terms of like, because I always sold prints, commercially, whatever, and I always thought in terms of prints that would sell. And I would look at 2 photos of mine. I'd look at a more abstract, more one in the style of what I like, kind of like, I don't know, my palm trees in Miami Polaroid. And then I would think about, a courthouse sunset. And I'd look at those 2 images and think, well, the courthouse sunset will sell. But that's kind of a stupid way to think. That's actually really dumb because obviously there is an audience somehow, some way for the Miami ones, especially if I leaned on telling a story and trusted my own instincts on what I liked. And eventually I would find an audience that would probably be willing to buy that Miami palm tree print. I was closed off. I've been closed off to this idea that like, I could sell this courthouse sunset to a law office. So that photo is more valid. And now don't get me wrong. I love being able to sell prints of any kind, and I love being able to sell prints of any style. And even if I don't love the photo as much as I love a different photo that I've shot, it always feels really good when you sell a print no matter what it is. It just feels good. And I'm trying to get out of this bad habit of talking crap about my past work or work that I've done that I don't necessarily love. But I can't shake this fact that throughout time, I've had this thing of like, I've always thought of myself as a photographer without a particular style. And it's just now that it occurs to me, it's like, oh no, I actually have a style that I unconsciously kind of do when I'm not when I'm not feeling like it's work I have to market or sell or whatever. When my business brain is too involved, my insecure about money or finances brain is too involved, when I feel just free and open to like take photos for no reason, which is rare because photography is so intertwined with my ability to make a living, that I've been so fixated on that. So I have closed out the idea that I had any style at all. I have always been convinced that I have photos I like to take and then photos that sell or that will make me money. And I've always had this weird dividing line. And through shooting a Polaroid every day, the lines got blurred. I kind of quit being interested in shooting as two different types of photographers. Ultimately, what I've been doing is that there's been two photographers inside of me. There's the hobbyist photographer Will, and then there's the Will that's got to make money. And those two Wills, it's hard to be two people, essentially. Those two Wills compete, and one always will take precedence over another because got to pay bills. And so the hobbyist Will always gets squelched. The hobbyist version of Will always gets pushed aside because the Will that's got to make money is extremely insecure, needs to pay bills, doesn't trust his own instincts in a lot of ways, and knows, okay, well, a sunset shot will sell. Just is what it is. But then, in a weird way, that's kind of a limiting way to think, because then hobbyist Will started this YouTube channel, or at least brought new life to his YouTube channel, renamed it Double Negative, started going down this rabbit hole of his weird interests, Polaroid, double exposures, just kind of started to have a little fun on the side. And then now I'm at 2,700 subscribers when I was at like 40 when I started doing this YouTube channel again, maybe 70. And the YouTube has started to, a little bit of money per month, not a ton, but a little bit. And now that hobbyist Will is like feeling a little empowered. That hobbyist Will is like, oh, well, maybe there is a market or a place for that. For what Will actually likes to make. And then I did this Polaroid 365 and I shot a Polaroid every day, and I kind of just forgot how to shoot like a normal photographer. I kind of beat myself into submission in a weird way. I don't know how to like just go out and shoot a sunset photo anymore. Because then what? What do I do with it? I could upload it to a stock photography website. Maybe I could sell it to an office or whatever, and it would just say in my back pocket, I could put it this or that, but it's not, it doesn't feel like it's part of anything anymore. It feels disconnected from the stuff I really want to do. And, life is short, and I'm at this point now where I just kind of, there's really only time for stuff that I really want to make. And realized this way of thinking of photos that make money and photos that don't is actually a limiting principle in and of itself. Because by saying one will make money and one won't, then you're closing out any possibility that you could be successful with anything other than boring stock photography. Well, boring stock photography, which again, I don't want to badmouth my small town photo project or past work and prints that I do sell custom on people's walls. Those are being replaced by AI. Those are the easiest things to make for the general public. Most people can get up early in the morning and go shoot a sunrise at a courthouse. And maybe they're not as good at editing. Maybe they're not as good at photography, but they can get there. But what they're not going to be in tune with is this idea of a deeper concept or a deeper drive to pursue kind of what they actually want in an image. That's a different thing. That's a different level. That's a different it's an artistic pursuit to kind of figure out what you're trying to say. And most people with a camera, I'm not trying to be mean, but most people with a camera have nothing to say. They just have a camera and they've got some slick tools and they can make a nice image. Do photography as your whole career. You don't give your entire life to it just to make nice images that look good on a stock photography website that you sell sometimes. You do photography your whole life because you're trying to say something with it. Now, obviously, some people do photography as a career, as a job. I think that's just that's just becoming harder and harder. So I think increasingly to be a successful photographer, you kind of have to have something to say. You kind of have to have a differentiator. You kind of have to be doing it for particular reasons. I think that's just how the market is changing things. I feel like I'm getting too in the weeds here, but basically what I'm saying in all of this is I've struggled with a lot of insecurity as to what my style is. Now, obviously, you try out different kinds of styles, and if you look through my work, there's a lot of different versions of Will over time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a general thing that I kind of gravitate to that I've done unconsciously, and I kind of just woke up to it weirdly yesterday. Felt the need to talk about it. Like, the idea that it started to occur to me, like what I am looking for when shooting images is hilarious because I've gone this long of time without even knowing it about myself. And now what's great is by the end of that whole thing last night, I was like, okay, I think I have an idea of how to integrate another camera back into my workflow. I know what I want to do with it. And to be honest with you, if I even think to my commercial work, if you're new here, I sell prints commercially, and I do like custom prints for commercial spaces, hotels, hospitals, law offices, banks, or whatever. And I was thinking back to the ones that sell, and I was always shortchanging my belief about what actually sells, which I said in the beginning of this episode, this is the kind of image that sell, and this is the kind of image that won't. But I've been shortchanging myself on that because I think about the image that kicked that whole business idea off back in 2016, 2017, when I started doing that. It was a double exposure. It was a double exposure that I shot on like a Nikon DSLR while doing a 365 project. And people thought that double exposure was cool, bought it as an aluminum print. I sold that same print many, many times on aluminum, postcards, paper prints, canvases, whatever. Shot a bunch of other double exposures, sold those. And then something clicked in my head. I deceived myself. I kind of went down this path of like more boring stock photography thinking that's what would sell. Leaning into what I was interested in, my style, what I had to say, always worked better. Worked better from the beginning. And I convinced myself that it didn't somehow. It's craziness. It's insane. I'm an insane person. There's a battle within. There's two wills in here. There's probably like 10. And we're all fighting, and we're all just like going off, and we're like crazy people. So I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. You're listening to a crazy person. But anyways, finding your style. That's the kind of agony you have to go through in finding your style of photography. It's agony. It's true agony to try to go through that. But when you wait for 15 years and you're finally honest with yourself, that's what all this is. It's like you have to be honest with yourself. And when you sit down and you have a moment to think. Like last night, I didn't do anything. I was just waiting for everyone to go to bed so I could watch the next episode of Landman. And my wife was doing bedtime stuff and with our daughter and blah, blah, blah. So I was just sitting in my office waiting to watch Landman. And so I had a chance to just do nothing. I told myself, don't do any work. Save that for tomorrow. Just sit, just chill. And I sat here with a non-alcoholic beer, and I just went down a rabbit hole. And I let my mind go. It wasn't necessarily that I've been lying to myself, trying to cover for myself, but it was just that I often think that the answer lies in work. But truly, the answer usually lies in giving yourself space to think. You can note it, and then when you give yourself space to think, you can kind of leave yourself, be an observer of yourself, and observe what you do unconsciously. And unconsciously, I've been for months just going down rabbit holes and rabbit holes and rabbit holes of like Japanese photographers and this kind of this certain style of photography. Why? I don't know. I just like the images. And so that's just what I did. I just did that. I watched this YouTube channel. I've gotten into this guy, Developing Tank. Shout out to him. Very informative videos. He goes through different photo books. I don't know how he affords all the photo books he has. I've looked up some that he talks about. It's like, oh, geez, crazy. But very good YouTube channel. And he seems to have an interest in these Japanese photographers too, because he's got a lot of videos about them. And so I've been going through his videos lately. And that's just what I did unconsciously. And so I actually last night had the chance to do something unconsciously and also pay attention to what I was doing unconsciously. And through that, I learned something about myself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you find your style. This is the long 30-minute way of telling you that's how you find your style in photography. Could have said that in the beginning, but no, I took you on a ride. We had to talk about it for half an hour because this is a podcast. This is what we do at Double Negative. Thanks for watching. You can follow me on Instagram at Will Malone. You can follow my Polaroid Instagram account at Everyday Instant. Like this video if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Subscribe to this channel if you want to pick up what I'm putting down over the long term every week. Make sure to subscribe to the Double Negative Dispatch. It's on Substack. I don't know if I said that in the beginning. It's on Substack, Double Negative Dispatch. Link is in the description. Very good stuff. Doing a lot of fun stuff on there. It's like a blog version of this stuff. Kind of. And then go to willmalone.com, buy a print. I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to start putting some more stuff up there over the next few weeks. Got some ideas. I was thinking about other types of merch, not just prints, but like, I don't know, t-shirts maybe. I've got a pile of postcards that have just been sitting on my desk for like a year. Should probably put those on my store. I don't know why I haven't. I just haven't. So we'll do that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Really appreciate you. And I will see you again very soon.